You may be second to Satoru Gojo in unusual abilities, but tell me, Yuta, Okkotsu, how useful will these abilities be against the king? What's up guys, Okkotsu here, and here we are to do a nice, quick, smooth, and blurry little ranking on Yuta Okkotsu's current kit of copied curse techniques on how useful they shall be against the king of curses, Ryomen Sukuna. Now, obviously, Yuta Okkotsu most likely has a deeper bag than ever before, considering he had a whole month of training, he ran into a whole bunch of opponents, he has, seemingly enough, a conditionless copy ability, he's been watching a whole bunch of stuff. There are definitely other things that Yuta has that he will most likely be using over any of the abilities that we're going to talk about in this video. But considering I don't necessarily see these abilities making a debut too much in the Sukuna fight, even once Yuta returns to support in the battle against the King of Curses, or whatever he happens to fight, I do believe that it's nice to talk about them one last time. Get a little bit more of their street cred in before they vanish into obscurity. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. What's up guys, that guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, yeah, I actually think Curse Speech is going to be the most useless of all of Yuta's techniques, very specifically against Ryomen Sukuna. Here's the thing, we don't fully understand what the body refresh did. We know it restored everything, but like, there are still intense debates on whether or not that restored his domain, whether or not he has cursed energy refresh completely, whether he's still on low cursed energy, if he's still dead, anything. We have no real idea. It seems like his RCT output is still low. Was that just a byproduct of his output being low? How much cursed energy does he have left? What does all this mean? We have no context nor clues of context on how this is going to work. So hypothetically, Curse Speech actually could be number one. But if we go with the idea that Sukuna is even at half his cursed energy reserves, Curse Speech, even from Yuta Okkotsu, wouldn't actually work out all too well for him. Remember, Curse Speech only works well against opponents who are either maybe slightly below your level, opponents who are compliant, and or 3 opponents who are much weaker than you. Against anyone stronger than you, Curse Speech can actually act as a backlash. Sure, there are definitely smooth, buttery, amazing, scrumdiddlyumptious combos that Yuta Okkotsu could whip up in the kitchen with Curse Speech against pretty much anyone else in the series. Remember, well, except for Satoru Gojo. But with that being the case, remember, Yuta Okkotsu has the second highest amount of Curse energy in the entire series. Second highest. He's also second only to Satoru Gojo in usual abilities and seemingly enough strength as the second strongest sorcerer. But now that Satoru Gojo has been bumped down the pack to the second strongest sorcerer, and Ryomen Sukuna still stands there unrivaled at the top, unfortunately Curse Speech probably just won't. Well, that's the thing. It really depends. If you think Yuta right now, fresh, especially if he puts the ring on, gets access to those unlimited cursed energy reserves from Rika, and he's looking nice, smooth, buttery, and scrumdiddlyumptious in terms of his cursed energy amount, and you think Ryomen Sukuna is on like 2%, he's just putting up a real good show, and he's still super omega efficient, that's why he can whip out a whole net of dismantles, that's why he can whip out a whole bunch of dismantles and cleaves and all the stuff like that with no issue at all. If you think that's the case, then Curse Speech would actually be pretty effective. But just based on how much Sukuna can still throw out, with seemingly no issue or no worry about his reserves running low, he can still pull out a whole bunch of cleaves. Remember, he threw a whole net. The reason we call Kashimo Waffle Shimo, the Waffle House employee, is because he literally got turned into a waffle by how big and massive the net of dismantles was. We see him throw out a world cleave. He may throw out another world cleave against Higuruma just for the fun of it. He's specifically throwing out little individual dismantles against Higuruma. I think he still has a whole bunch of his cursed energy left. In spite of what Meguna implied by his lack of RCT state, and in spite of what his low output seems to imply by the lack of his hand regrowing by the end of 247, I still think Ryomen Sukuna has a bunch of Curse energy reserves. And here's the thing, if you think it's just like a general strength thing, if Curse Speech gets less effective simply the stronger or more skilled or more amazing your opponent is, that's it. Then Yuta's still not clearing that, because at least for right now, he's not stronger than Gojo. And Gojo, if he used Curse Speech on Sukuna, most likely wouldn't work out all too well, since Sukuna is simply the superior sorcerer. And top that off with the fact that, well, Sukuna knows about Curse Speech, at least presumably, like, Earl recognized Curse Speech. I presume that Sukuna knows more than Uro. The Inumaki clan has been around for a hot minute, and thusly their ability isn't all too secret. And the moment that Sukuna senses Yuta Okkotsu, because unfortunately we don't have Takaba running around trying to suppress Sukuna's senses or anything like that, unless Yuta runs up Omega Giga Suppressed and then tries to whisper something after sliding the ring on, getting access to limited cursed energy, fully manifested Rika spawning in, and then he yells something, Sukuna's gonna be like, oh, wait, that kid, and just block his ears. Unless Yuta comes out the cut and instantaneously yells, perish, at the top of his lungs, he's not doing anything. That's the thing. At least with cursed speech in particular, because of how finicky it is, and because of how powerful Sukuna is. Once again, maybe if Sukuna's super low on CE amounts, and cursed speech doesn't matter based on how strong your opponent is, and top that off with the fact that Yuta's going to go for something lethal off rip, I just don't see it being all too useful against Sukuna, just because of how limited it is in regards of accidentally damaging Yuta. Sure, Yuta has RCT. Unlike Inumaki, he can very easily fight the rebound of cursed speech by using RCT to heal himself, especially if he's attached to Rika. He should have access to all of her cursed energy reserves, and thusly should be essentially slopped off completely, and should have no issues in terms of maintaining himself in the long run. But I just don't think cursed speech would be that useful against Sukuna in particular. It may be useful for, like, buffing his allies, maybe, but outside of that, unfortunately, I just don't see cursed speech really hopping up in the kitchen, risk the whipping, at least not all too much. But let's move on to number 2. I know this seems weird. I know you're like, pencil. Really? Drew Shikigami technique? What could be so useful about that? What in the... Fodder and things to waste Sukuna's cursed energy on. Realize the biggest thing that we can do with Sukuna right now is just run him down. Bit by bit, we can just run him down. That's the main perk we have against Sukuna right now. He is presumably still on a limited cursed energy supply. The best efficiency in the entire series by a long shot outside of the literal 6 size, but presumably we can run him down on cursed energy. And if Drew was able to make those Shikigami massive, gargantuan, insanely huge, presumably Yuta, who should have much more cursed energy than Drew, especially with Rika sliding that ring on the only time Yuta could pull out Drew Shikigami technique, having massive, gargantuan summons just fall from the heavens on Sukuna, or charge towards him, or do whatever needs to be done to distract him, and mess with his mental a little bit, I think it works. Essentially, you can kind of just crowd the battlefield, and make it so that Sukuna is forced to get overwhelmed. Overwhelmed? Or not overwhelmed. He's not traveling the 9 realms. But overwhelmed. Because one of the things you can definitely do with that is block and confuse Sukuna's senses and give a whole wide battlefield of hypothetical sneak attacks. Essentially, remember how Pain from Naruto used the Rinnegan summons? Just a whole bunch of junk on the screen. Like, legit, just a whole bunch of stuff in the area that's causing damage, creating havoc, and these would be massive masses of cursed energy as well. Meaning that Sukuna, while he's dealing with gigantic Shikigami number 1, gigantic Shikigami number 2 could be coming at him from the right, and the other one could be coming from the left, and one could be coming from the heavens, and one could be coming from below, and one could be coming from in front of him. All these things could gank him, and then you could have other characters slide in with their special abilities. Whether it be Maki pulling out the cut with the soul split and going for a lethal blow, since she wouldn't be sensed, and there'd be so much cursed energy flopping all around everywhere by the size of the Shikigami, drowning Sukuna's senses so he wouldn't be able to pay attention to that. Whether it be Itadori Yuji suppressing himself and lunging in with something like a soul swapping technique or a point blank attack of something of the sort. Whether it be Yuta Okkotsu himself coming in and going crazy with the blade. The efficiency and extra lives essentially that Drew Shikigami technique allows. Because remember, all that Yuta did was like yank off some hair. Well, one little strip of hair, threw it into the air, and suddenly a whole bunch of little mini Shikigami came out. A little mini Rika. And if you think they can only be manifested as mini Rikas, imagine a bunch of fully manifested Rikas, or at least partially manifested Rikas running around and trying to gank Sukuna. Sure, would he be able to block them all and mollywop them in like 2 hits? Yeah, but guess what? That's not Ino who's getting mollywopped in 2 hits. That's not Kusakabe getting mollywopped in 2 hits. That's not any of our named characters who actually have lives that we need to worry about getting mollywopped in 2 hits. It's essentially Sukuna having to deal with just bodies. bodies that are nameless that he will have to deal with, because even if they can't really scratch him, they're going to hinder his options. He wouldn't be able to dodge something like Soul Split Katana if, I don't know, a Shikigami was coming out of nowhere to give him a little bear hug. He wouldn't be able to do anything against like an upwards assault from Soul Splitter Maki if a unmanifested Rika clone or something of the sort, one of the Shikigami comes and grabs him by the torso. He essentially has to deal with them, and every single time one falls, we don't have to worry about any of our actual characters falling, which is the safe part here. It's what takes true Shikigami technique that step above Cursed Speech. Because sure, there are possibilities where Cursed Speech can work and can be good, can be smooth and buttery, and may be able to be used to buff our fellow contemporaries and stuff like that in the best ways possible. Saving us all, saving Jujutsu. But just based on how Cursed Speech works, and based on how it could actually damage Yuta in retrospect if it goes up against Sukuna, and if it can't be used to boost his allies in any way, shape, or form, and the possibility of just the countless warm bodies. Like, Yuta got a whole bunch of hair on his head, and his long hair too. He can just boop, 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 and drop like 20 Shikigami. The man has boundless cursed energy when he's connected to Rika. For 5 minutes, not 4 minutes and 11 seconds, for 5 minutes, he can just drop everything, flood the battlefield, and allow so many more opportunities for himself, for his friends, for anyone with lethal options. Anything in between, Sukuna would be facing the dream or the nightmare of multiple Shikigami all ganking him at the same time. Even if they're all fodder, at least they're fodder that don't have names. And if you think that like the whole constituting a domain thing that the Shikigami do against Uro means that they could hypothetically shut down Uro's technique or Sukuna's technique in this scenario, even better. The only reason I wouldn't say that would be all too good, because I'm not sure how like focused that is, because it may accidentally shut off things like the Soul Split Katana in terms of like turning off Sukuna's durability by negating the technique of the Soul Split Katana or Yuji's technique or anything like that. So like if that orbiting Shikigami thing comes in and starts shutting down techniques, that could actually be an issue for everybody else, and we kind of wouldn't want that. We would want Sukuna to be just facing bodies. So that's the main reason I have to give Drew Shikigami technique number 2 on the top right in the number 1. I mean, yeah, it's sky manipulation. What'd you think it was gonna be? No, but seriously, sky manipulation has got to be number 1. And here's the thing. I'm personally in the camp that Yuta Okkotsu is not reacting and like yanking the sky out of the way on a spatial slash. If a spatial slash comes towards Yuta, that's it. He's done. He's just done. Like, I'm sorry. If Satoru Gojo, off 4 black flashes, was not able to react to a spatial slash, Yuta Okkotsu, who's weaker than a one-armed low RCT, all that Gojo, is not reacting to a spatial slash, especially not, like, grabbing it out of midair and bending it with sky manipulation. But the main thing that sky manipulation gives Yuta, it gives him Duraneg. It gives him Duraneg. Because the big issue that Yuta has, at least unless he gets some other certain techniques that maybe talks about in their own separate video, unless he gets something like that, that would allow him to, you know, boost up his attack potency, even as impressive as his one-shotting and removing of Kenjaku's head is, I don't think he's really doing that against Sukuna. I don't think he's actually that strong to the point where he could just lop Sukuna's head off or lop a limb off or anything like that. And I don't think like Maki has something like Soul Split Katana, which can essentially ignore Sukuna's durability by attacking his soul directly. I think he does need something to bypass that power gap, that durability gap, in what better way than something that just breaks space and shatters it with contact of 2 palms. It's as simple as that. With Sukuna being forced to deal with Yuta just thin icebreakering him at every single opportunity, Sukuna goes for a punch, just like Yuta went for a punch against Uro. Thin icebreaker. Sukuna's fighting somebody else, then Yuta comes in from behind or to the back of the head. Thin icebreaker. Sukuna tries to breathe. Thin icebreaker. He could just spam that. Because once again, bro has unlimited cursed energy. And unlike cursed speech, and unlike Drew Shikigami technique, there should be no backlash for using this. There's nothing that... It's not like Sukuna's going to be able to reflect the spatial Duraneg damage back at Yuta somehow. That's not how this one works. It's not like Cursed Speech where it could have rebound, and it's not like Drew Shikigami technique where by shutting down techniques, he could accidentally disable himself or his friends as they're fighting Sukuna. Nah, he can just throw that out. And that's the offensive potency of the technique. Imagine just Yuta just flying around. Free flying, carrying people, throwing people around, doing whatever he needs to do. Because remember, Uro has freeform flight with sky manipulation as well. And sure, I personally believe that Yuta Okkotsu wouldn't be able to react to or do anything with sky manipulation towards a spatial slash. But who knows? If we go with Kusakabe's theory that dismantles are flying slashes, and if Sukuna's playing around a little bit too much, Yuta could literally, I don't know how he would do it, because it'd be a struggle, but he could literally reach out, grab space, pull it around him, swing it around, and throw it right back at Sukuna with more force than he launched it with. And then Sukuna's going to have to start dealing with his own attacks. So Sky Manipulation, it has that extra degree of freedom that Yuta would really like in this battle without any of the drawbacks. I'll admit, Curse Speech has freedom. You can pretty much pull out whatever words you want against your opponent, and 9 out of 10 times, unless they're Ryoma and Sukuna, the one character in the series to have more cursed energy, and to be, right now, who's alive at least, a definitively stronger character than Yuta Okkotsu, then it could be good, but once again, he's fighting Sukuna. This is what we're talking about here. Shikigami technique could be very, very good. A whole bunch of warm bodies, whole bunch of gigantic, throbbing, pulsing, let me stop, but masses of cursed energy that'll definitely flood Sukuna's senses, but if they start orbiting in a certain way, could accidentally cause a domain nullification effect, and thusly end up shutting down techniques, which could be risky. But Sky Manipulation, it has no risks. It has risks of Sukuna like immediately being like, oh, wait a minute, I recognize that technique, and immediately going to like spatial slash him. But outside of that, which is just always a liable issue if Sukuna really feels like it, there's freedom and flexibility. Yuta can pull up anything offensively, and unless it's something like spatial slash, he can pull up anything defensively as long as he can react and read it. And that is very, very good. He can act as a defensive wall for himself, act as a defensive wall for his friends, act as an offensive defensive wall where he reflects Sukuna's attacks back at him, while always doing damage to Sukuna with an icebreaker, making him start to burn more and more of that RCT. Because if it can do damage to Ryu, then icebreaker had Ryu spitting up his guts. I'm assuming it can do damage to beings even as powerful as the king of curses themselves. And worst comes to worst, Sukuna just gets grabbed by like the armpits and just gets flown straight up into the air and has to deal with Yuta Okkotsu up there, or it gets dropped down. There's so many different things and combos that you can do with Sky Manipulation that, especially if he's able to, like, hypothetically, once again, this is pure speculation, if he's able to start stacking techniques, if Yuta Okkotsu starts putting the warm bodies on top of the Sky Manipulation, on top of some Curse Speech manipulation of his friends and allies, and maybe even Sukuna himself, it could get absolutely buku bonkers with what Sky Manipulation could easily bring to the table. However, that's what I think. Please let you guys think in the comment section down below. How would you rank Yuta's current 3 known copied abilities and how he would use them against Ryoma and Sukuna? Do you think some should go higher? Do you think some should go lower? Do you think I had a decent list, a trash list, or something somewhere in between? Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. Now, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave copy paste. 1 word. Or 2, however you feel like. Leave copy paste in the comment section down below. And thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come on this channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also get ad-free content now too. But you can also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, thank you so much for watching. Once again, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays, Red Wolf 4765, Greyhound, and Akid's Void. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, Demix LND, and Igneal. And I'd like to give a chunky old thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. And I'd like to give another chunka thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchio, Joaquin, Idemokai, and China Doll 09. I'd like to give a tractor thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give another giga gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.